programs, and welcome to another episode of one of my favorite and probably your favorite segments on my channel, Versus, and we are up to Versus episode 9. I cannot get over the fact that this stupid idea, because there's way too many of those in my head, just happens to catch on and grab a cult following. And the best part about it is the fact that we're always talking about things that each and every one of us knows and loves. So today, we've got another one of our favorite kinds of battles, a book versus film battle, and it's one of the more recent films. We just did A Wrinkle in Time in episode 8, but this time around, we're going to be talking about a movie and its book, which happens to be my third favorite book of all time to date. And that, of course, is Ernest Cline's Ready Player One. And I don't think we could have anticipated a more exciting film adaptation than director Steven Spielberg helming with a stellar cast to go along with it. But if you have been watching Versus before, you know that I'm not the one that does all the talking on this segment. It is up to my panelists, who are going to be battling it out to determine which one of these is the better one, the book or the film. So we're going to get right into that. So let's start off by introducing the panel with the defender of the Ready Player One book.
Hi, everyone. My name is Courtney. I'm Courtagonist on YouTube, and I do reviews on books and different things like that. And I am going to be defending the book.
Yeah. And based on a lot of conversations that we've had, I am expecting these two ladies to really bring the thunder here. So before we get into that, let's also introduce the second panelist, who happens to be the defender of the film.
Hello, I'm Gina, RandomlyBookishGina on YouTube and BookishGina on Twitter and Instagram. I'm defending the movie, and I'm pretty excited.
I am too. I think we're all excited too, because this is definitely a book and a film that gets a lot of people in all the YouTube communities excited. There's just so many people talking about this book all the time. And now that the film is out, let's just put it this way. I've already pre-ordered the film because I had such a good time watching it, but I love this book just as much. But like I said, this is not about me doing the talking. This is about these two giving it all they've got to see exactly what happened. So where do we stand in terms of book versus film? Well, after 8 episodes with 6 based on books versus films, the books are leading the films by a score of 4-2. So let's see what happens today. So before we get into the actual questions and the battles, I want to first find out from the both of you. We'll start with the defender of the book because the book always comes first. I wanted to get your understanding of your impressions of the book when you first read it.
Okay, so I was absolutely in love with the book. I actually listened to it on audio, and Will Wheaton was the most perfect person to be doing the read aloud of this book. Like, it was legit amazing. I was fangirling everywhere when I heard his voice, and it was so perfect. It really set the tone for like future Oklahoma City kind of play, and seeing what everything around the world is right now, just doing a little bit extra and seeing how, you know, it might be in the future.
Did you guys actually know that Will Wheaton voicing the Audible actually was a Jeopardy question last week?
What?
Oh, that's
yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
The minute my wife and I saw Will Wheaton did the narration for this book, I was like, Ready Player One, I know this. Okay, anyway, Gina, your first impressions on the book.
Ready Player One is actually the book that kind of got me back into reading after college. Like, it's one of the first books I picked up because of BookTube, and I physically read it first in like 2 days. I was in love with it. It was captivating. And then same thing, I found out Will Wheaton did the audiobook and listened to it. I've read it at least 3 times, I think. The audiobook's fantastic. It's just, I loved it.
Yeah.
The references, everything, it's just great.
Yeah, it took me a little bit of time to finally get on the boat there because, you know, I really do enjoy a lot of reading, and BookTube has introduced me to so many books, and this was definitely one of them. And as a product of the 80s, it was a shock to me that it took this long for me to find the book. And yeah, I've already read it 2 times. I definitely want to read it more. And it's just such a fun and exciting read, especially for the nostalgia factor on my end. So let me shoot it back to you, Gina, and let me ask you, what were your first impressions on hearing about the film adaptation? And were you skeptical, or were you excited, or was it a little bit of both, or neither? And then we'll go to Courtney.
As soon as they announced Spielberg was doing it, I was fine. And as soon as I saw that Ernest himself was writing the screenplay, I was fine. And so, like, to put it in perspective, this movie is the most excited I've been about a movie since Harry Potter. And the week leading up to it, my mom went with me to the Thursday night show. Like, the week leading up to it, it's all I could talk about. And even Thursday day, my coworkers were so mad at me because every hour I would tell them, hey guys, 7 hours until Ready Player One. I'm like, I had a countdown going, and they were so annoyed. I was stoked.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Courtney, how about yourself?
I was actually really excited at first whenever I first saw the trailer, but I hadn't read the book yet. It's one of Aaron, my boyfriend's absolute favorite books. And so then he was like, well, if we're going to watch the movie, you're going to want to read the book. And I was like, there's a book? And then on the way down to Texas, he put on the audiobook. And I was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. I'm so stoked for the movie. And so then the movie happened.
Yes, that's a great way to lead into the first battle. That is bravo. So let's begin. Let's discuss. We're going to, of course, as always, break it down into 3 different battles, which will focus on certain things. The first 2, I just want to forewarn everybody, are not going to be the long, most in-depth topics. It's really going to be the last one where we're really going to start going at it and go into the nitty-gritty of things. But let's see how the next 2 hours progresses, and in the breaks, we'll see if there's anybody that wants to ask a question. We'd love to answer it, but that would only be if there is time. So we're just going to get right into this. So let's start with the first battle, and it is overall atmosphere of the book and film. So Courtney, of course, we're going to start with you, and we'll just see how the conversation goes. So feel free. I'm not going to need to signal anybody. If someone has something to say, jump in and say it. That's what we're here for, freedom of speech. This is no safe space. We're going to be doing whatever we want to say. So the first area of atmosphere I wanted to find out about was, this is a very interesting book because it clings onto the coattails of the hottest genre in books. Maybe not right now, but for the time it was. And that, of course, was the young adult genre. Because the post-apocalypse story was huge. You saw it every which way in so many different books. But how does it compare to others in the YA genre?
I see that this book is, I guess, a little bit more realistic, if you ask me, where we are in our world as it is right now, where people are becoming more and more immersed into their phones, into games, into going into alternate universes in their head and, you know, having escapism. I feel like this is sort of like, it could be the next step where I think it is different in other YA post-apocalyptic dystopian kind of books where a lot of the things I feel like are sort of like a stretch with Hunger Games. I think that that's a little bit of a stretch and different things like that. This is something that in my head, I was like, man, this could potentially happen with the way that we are going in our world right now.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of like the same, like it's more relatable. Like you can really see how it would progress, and with the fact that VR has gotten so big, like it's definitely closer to the relatability of things.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really good points on both ends. Absolutely. A very interesting thing that we thought about when we were discussing it, it literally just popped into my head when we had the last session. How about the fact that this is a YA book that is written by a male author, especially considering the fact that YA is a predominantly female author group?
Yeah, I didn't realize that there were so many dystopian YA books mostly written by females, mostly because I don't read YA. So like that was not in my head. I read a lot of cozies, which of course is predominantly female authors. But I guess that this is a niche that men aren't normally in. And I actually liked the fact that it was a male-oriented male protagonist because I'm always in for, you know, inclusionism. I want everybody to feel like they're able to relate to the characters in some way or another. And it's easier if the protagonist is male in this case. I really liked it.
Yeah, I didn't really realize that it wasn't that it was written by a male author or even the lack of female authors until you mentioned it. And I guess I didn't really pay too close attention because I read it pretty close in succession with Maze Runner. So I kind of like they're like sort of like the similar genres and everything. But yeah, it's definitely interesting that there's more female dystopian books and authors. And it was a nice change from like the typical, female damsel in distress, but I'm not a damsel in distress kind of thing.
Yeah, very much so, where I'm going to do insta-love crap.
Yeah.
Do you think that the film itself, being written in the spectrum of YA, did the movie feel like a YA dystopian novel?
No.
No, but I feel like they did that on purpose to reach a wider audience.
Yeah, very much so.
That's kind of interesting, considering the fact that a lot of the YAs that were interpreted into film did actually make great money at the box office and actually did do very well in terms of making money. I mean, Hunger Games did very successfully. I'm shocked by that.
Yeah, but I think that a lot of times it's, I might not be, should not say this, but it's most of the time of stay-at-home moms who have nothing better to do that go and see movies like the Hunger Games and like things like that, that then they take all of their kids and then they go and they rewatch it. Whereas with Ready Player One, it seemed more of a, it was going to reach a wider audience where, you know, Star Wars does and Avengers does and different things like that. I probably offended people.
Well, first of all, if you offended anybody, that's a load of crap because you shouldn't have. There is nothing wrong with a woman staying at home taking care of her children if she chooses. No. It's her choice. We're not getting into politics, by the way. I don't want to do that. That's for a Sunday sit down if anybody wants to talk about that. I'm more than welcome to showcase that feature. But anyway, the last thing I want to discuss in terms of the atmosphere, and this is really where we're going to start seeing some differences here. I love the answers, by the way, for both of you. The overall feeling of the two separate worlds in terms of the book, in terms, you know, of the film, because I personally sense some differences, but I want to hear from the both of you.
Yeah. So I loved the atmosphere of the book. I loved the way that it felt. It really did feel like two different worlds. Oklahoma City, it's run down. I mean, I live in Oklahoma, so like I have an actual, like, I drive there all the time. And then the feel of the oasis, like I could see it in my head. I could see everything just going on there. And I really, really, really liked it. It felt tangible to me in the book.
As far as the movie, like I kind of feel this, like the movie stepped it up and took it to a new level, at least for me, because I saw it in IMAX the first time. I've seen it twice, and I gotta say it was better in IMAX, and it was in 2D, but it was still really good in 2D. But like just the way that the CGI made the Oasis look and feel, like it felt like VR, and it felt like you were a part of it. And even after, my mom was like, so I kept looking over to you. You were just smiling the whole time. And I was like, because I was like so engrossed in like in the feeling of the Oasis. Like I love the
CGI really, really well.
It was so good.
It was absolutely stunning, the CGI. I really did really like that.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I actually was going to ask the both of you, mostly for Gina for defending the film, but my question was going to be, how did you feel about the CGI? Like, did it look too cartoony? Did it take away from the feeling that you got about the Oasis in the book? I think that that's a very interesting thing to mention in regards to that.
I think it was just enough to not feel too, like, not necessarily too cartoony, but like not overdone. And it was just enough to not feel like it wasn't done enough. So like, it was like the perfect balance. When we were in the Oasis in the VR, you knew you were in the Oasis, but it wasn't overdone.
Yeah, and I like the fact that with the Oasis characters, with Parzival and Artemis and H and things like that, they really did integrate the real actors' facial cues and characters really, really well. So you were able to see the characters in the Oasis and know who they were in real life, and vice versa. I did really like that. Now, if we want to get into characters and how they characterized the
which we will,
I have a problem. But overall, visually, it was beautiful.
All right. Well, you know something? That was a quick and easy round one. Fantastic job by the both of you. And based on everything that we discussed, I am actually going to be giving round one to the film. And it just seemed to me that the overall atmosphere, and to an extent, there's a good reason as to why. And that's because of the fact that while people love to get engrossed in the stories of the pages of the book and using their imaginations, there are just some things that you are screaming at the top of your lungs, like, show this to me. I want to see this. Which is the reason,
yeah.
Which is the reason why a movie like Mockingjay did so much better than the book, because so many people didn't like the way it was written. How I am going to beg Brandon Sanderson when I meet him, give me movie news on Mistborn, because I need to see that shit right in front of my face. I need to see it. So I totally see where we're coming from. But before we move on, first of all, I just want to know if there's anybody out there that has a question. Right now, we don't have that many people in the chat. Not surprised, it's still fresh and early. It's also Memorial Day weekend, so people are doing things, and people have barbecues to be at. But Cammie from Cammie's Corner is here. So glad that she is here, because she was such a great panelist on A Wrinkle in Time's episode. So it looks like we don't have any questions, but Courtney, your wish is officially granted, because the next round is going to be the characters.
I'm going to go to the book.
So let's talk about that new golden trio, if you will. And by golden trio, I mean Parzival, or Artemis, and H.
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah?
Yeah. So the characters in the book, they were amazingly well written. You could see their background. You knew where Wade was coming from in the white trash trailer park kind of place, and how he was even lower in the totem pole when it came to being in the Oasis. You learn about Artemis and how she has this sort of badassness to her, and she's not one to be rescued by a man. She's not one to, she's actually pushing Wade away. And then there's H, the badass guy that you start thinking H is, looking like a military Marines, white guy, big, buff, gonna kick some ass kind of way. And you're so super excited about them. And then the movie happens and they ruin it.
Oh my God, the line has officially been drawn. Gina, run with this, please.
So I actually like how they did the movie characters. Like, at first I was really upset with Artemis's character, because her avatar is supposed to be so similar to her human form. But in the movie, like, it kind of makes sense. Like, the more I saw Artemis's avatar, and the more, like, after seeing the movie, I really like her avatar. And even Parzival, I know their names. Even Parzival's avatar, like, I liked how they did it, how they gave them the tint of the color. Like, they made them look like an avatar. Because I feel like had they done it too human-like, it would have lost the feeling of the Oasis. And, like, it's a movie, like, you're gonna bump it up and make it.
She should have been more voluptuous. She should have been more womanly shaped than compared to the basic stick figure, this is what she should look like kind of thing. And that annoyed me, because that's one of the things that I loved about the book, was the fact that their avatars, the way they looked, there was a reason why they looked like that. She was supposed to be totally different from every other female in the whole entire Oasis, and she just looked exactly like everyone else, and that ticked me off.
Yeah, I like that they had that in the book as well. But again, like with the movie, like thinking about it, if I were to make my character in the Oasis, she's pretty much how I would create my character. I'd probably use a different color scheme, but I like the big eyes. I loved the big eyes especially, because like I always mess with like my avatars in Sims. Like my initial review for this was, it is Sims on steroids. And so like
I love that.
Like,
love that.
Artemis's avatar is how I create some of my Sims avatars. So like I totally get kind of why they would like go that way.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like they took away the uniqueness in the characters, especially with H. That pissed me off the most, because the whole entire background of H was that the reason why she designed her avatar to be a big white guy was because of the whole entire background of her mom saying that, you know, even though we're here in this time in the world, there's still racism, there's still prejudice against women, especially Black women, and this is what you need to be in order to be the sort of the most respected within the world. And then they turn around in the book and make her this big black guy in the Oasis, which is bullshit, because that's not how it was in the book. Because in the book, that was the way it was supposed to be, and there was a reason behind it. And I don't think it would have taken them that long to freaking put a little bit more depth in H's character in order to make the audience connect more.
The only thing, like, with H's character, like I agree, but at the same time, the only thing I was going to be super pissed off about was if they made her avatar female, and they didn't. And so, like, the rest of it, like, I get where you're coming from, but at the same time, it didn't bother me.
Yeah, I just feel like that was also a nod to everything that's going around in the world right now when it comes to racism and when it comes to those different kinds of things. Like, that would have been something that, I know that we go to movies to be happy and things like that, but movies are also a piece of art, and they're supposed to be sort of taking the time period in which we are in and making it relatable. And I feel like that whole entire aspect then takes that relatability away from different people that would have related more to that in the movie.
I wonder if the three of them got to give any input to their avatars.
That's a really good question.
That is a very good question. I mean, and also to a certain degree, as someone who actually did play online role-playing games, I played World of Warcraft for about 10 years with friends, and I made new friends. Like, you also you don't want your true identity to be revealed in a place that is literally where you're a stranger in a strange land. That's definitely a major factor. But I want to elaborate a little bit more about the avatar representation, because you're making some great points. Your attitude about the fact that they didn't actually make their not just them, nobody in the Oasis. Mm-hmm. They basically were their characters throughout the entire time, rather than their actual depictions of their own human selves in the Oasis, which in the book goes into a lot more detail. Was that something that took away from the story as a whole or not?
Not for me.
For me, yeah. Like, I feel like you need to be true to the characters, and you need to be true to what's going on in the book, and then the storylines that are woven in and make the characters have a little bit more depth. It made H's character more flat to me. It made her just that token laugh track of what she could have been more of.
See, I loved H's avatar. Like, it, but more so with the fact that it was more fantasy-like, and that her character, like her avatar, could do more. And like, it still showed that avatar was like the stronger person, and it wasn't really her. And so, like, I don't know, it didn't bother me at all. Like, it almost helped a little bit that they weren't really real life, because it gave more to the movie element and to the film. And like, it's an adaptation, so
yeah,
you gotta take it and roll with it.
Yeah, I understand that adaptations are going to be a little bit off, but off to the degree that it makes the character not feel as close. That annoys me, because H was one of my favorite characters in the whole entire book, and then they just basically annihilated her in the movie and just made her to be the laugh track, and that just pissed me off.
Let's move on to the main antagonist of the book and film, and that, of course, is Sorrento, who is the head of the big corporation IOI that is trying to play the same game that our heroes are trying to play in order to take control of the Oasis. And also, as well as the actor that portrayed them. We didn't even tackle that whole aspect yet, but we'll get into that a little bit later as well.
All right, with Sorrento, I feel like attitude was spot on. I'm not necessarily happy with the person who played Sorrento. Also, don't get me wrong, wasn't Sorrento still in the he was still supposed to look the same as everyone else, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
We're all supposed to look the same, and the only thing that was different was the number that they had. And that was supposed to be the whole entire identity of IOI, and that whole entire realm is that they're all the exact same cookie cutter, sorry. My knocked over my bookend.
Oh no.
She's fine. But I just felt like the character as a whole should have been, a dick the way he was, but he still should have looked the exact same as every other IOI inside the system, and that took away from it. That made him more of a showy character than he should have been.
I like that his avatar was like this big burly asshole looking man. Like, it made me hate him more. Like, I hated him more in the movie than I did in the book, and I think his avatar helped with that. And also like the weird I want to say sidekick, but like she wasn't his sidekick, like his assistant or whatever that they added for the movie.
I was going to touch on that. That was going to be a follow-up question. My question was going to be, what was also your overall attitude on the fact that it didn't seem that he was working alone, besides being the overwatch of the entire group of Sixers that are looking for the Easter eggs. The fact that he had Finale and also another character who is in the book but has no role whatsoever, who has a much bigger role in the movie, and that is IROC.
Yeah,
I really like IROC did like his addition in the movie because he's forgettable in the book for me. I had to Google afterwards, like, who is IROC? Like, who was he in the book? So I really liked it. Plus, he's TJ Miller, right?
Correct.
Like, correct. I what he did with the character is just I really enjoyed it. But like, Finale is her name, his little assistant girl. Mm-hmm. I liked her because, like, it gave you more insight into the IOI, and, like, Sorrento's himself, like, obviously this jerk of a man isn't really doing everything himself. Like, he has little minions doing his work for him, and, like, the fact that she was so annoyed with him and was like, no, don't do this, but he did it anyway, I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I didn't like her added in because I feel like it was supposed to be him basically taking the whole entire company against the trio, and I feel like she was sort of the well, you know, you really are being stupid kind of person, which we know if we they sort of just like dumbed down his character. Like, they made it to where he was like, I like how Cheesy Squirrel over here says that they dumbed down his character a little bit, making it to where he was making stupid mistakes and making it so obvious for people who can't read into people's cues. It really kind of ticked me off. And then with IROC, I hated him in the movie. That was crap. He was supposed to be this Weasley little scumbag that fell off the face of the planet after we were freaking done with him, after he decided to just be just an asshole and send IOI against all of them. I don't like the fact that he became sort of this assassin badass kind of guy, because that is not what he was in the book at all. I know they needed an extra depth of evil villainous going on, but I didn't like that.
I think they also changed him because they changed, like, the fact that we didn't start at school. And so, like, his main point in the book was he was just another school bully. So
which I see the school. That's where the whole entire aspect is. I know we'll get into that more, but I feel like that needs to be there. It just, no. Not
Do
even.
you also feel that adding Finale in there, do you think that maybe it was just because of the fact that there needed to be more female representation on both sides, so they just threw in another token female character to please the SJWs of the world?
I kind of just because the fact that Artemis changes places with Wade and ends up going to the IOI, they needed a female against a female kind of fight, which is crap as well. And I just feel like that's just, I don't know, I didn't like her at all.
I think that we're starting to notice that a lot in Hollywood these days. They're basically doing these things to think that they're pleasing certain groups, but it's now getting to the point where people's eyes are getting open. They're saying, wait a minute, why does this constantly happen? You know, like, there's nothing wrong with female villains and female heroes, but there's nothing wrong with seeing both male and female protagonists and antagonists being just as equally heroic or villainous. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I didn't read her that way watching it, but, like, now that you mention it, maybe. I think she was in it enough and she had enough, like, to help and to do and everything that it didn't come off that way. Like, maybe if she was just in it for like 2 seconds and like, oh, here's this random person. But I feel like her character was like a good balance for an added character, because like it gave it a little bit more depth, but it also didn't take too far away from like the original plot.
I will say I like her better than IROC.
By the way, I say this all the time when I do this show. Ladies and gentlemen, there will be spoilers in this, but then again, if you never saw this movie or read this book, you probably wouldn't even be watching. So I'm pretty much certain that everybody here has read the book, seen the movie, maybe both. So let's move on to a little bit more of the supporting cast. Let's talk about a thing that is definitely going to start making Courtney get a little bit angry. Let's talk about Shoto and Daito, or in the case of the movie, Daito and Sho.
Okay, absolute bull crap when it comes to Shoto and Daito. One, they're supposed to be the exact same age because okay, I'm gonna try and calm down.
Deep breath, have some tea.
Okay, yeah, well, I drank all my tea, so
darn it.
Yeah. Okay, so the age was also a factor in the book. The fact is yes, they were supposed to be seen as brothers, but they're not actually related. They're people who came upon each other and noticed that they needed help and that they needed each other and that they were going to take that relationship into the Oasis as brothers. And I loved that. I loved their relationship. They were the duo. They were, the high five. They were part of the high five. But the whole entire reason that sorry, I'm looking at my notes. The whole entire reason that Shoto wanted to work with the Golden Trio is because Daito was murdered. He was brutally murdered by the IOI, which they did not even show in the book, which is also bullshit, because they needed to show that depth of the characters. This is all about the depth of the characters, which the movie freaking missed. Is the fact that you're supposed to be able to see these characters, really understand why the Golden Trio were sort of working together, but where Daito and Shoto were their own team. They were their own working together. And you needed to know why Shoto was so pissed at the end and was really trying to go for kicking ass and dealing with the Golden Trio and everything. And they took that away. It wouldn't have hurt any kid's little feelings had someone freaking died in the movie. That is crap, and that is the whole entire reason why everything worked together.
The age thing didn't bother me because, I knew that there was going to be a lot of differences, so I specifically did not reread the book until after the movie came out, and it's because I didn't want any of that. So the age differences didn't bother me. I didn't even, I kind of thought of it, but not really. But the whole death thing that I kept waiting. I was like, okay, when's he going to die? When's he going to die? When's he gonna? Okay, now he's working with them. He hasn't died.
It mattered that he needed to die. He needed to have a character who lost in this round. That's one of the things about video games. That's one of the things about real life. You lose people. And the thing is that's one of the things that made me love this book so much. I fucking cried at that part in the book. And then they turned around and then they took that away from me in the movie, the way that I wanted to see Shoto really just get in grips and be like, you know what, this is on. I don't care what we're doing. We're going to beat this. And that whole entire bringing yourself up and feeling like, yeah, we're going to kick ass left with the movie.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that specifically. I still felt that emotion and that fight and everything with the movie, but I kept waiting for him to die, and then it didn't happen. I was like, okay, well, I guess this isn't happening, but it also didn't ruin it that much for me.
Now the name change, there's an interesting story behind that.
Yeah, the story with the name change is ridiculous, but
they did the same thing in The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. They had to say that we can't have both Sauron and Saruman in the same movie because it's going to confuse the fans. So if we make two characters named Shoto and Daito, people are going to not figure out who's... I'm like, wow, you really think that we're that dumb?
Right. That's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just... That made me mad too.
And the final characters that we're going to discuss before we finish this round is going to be, obviously, Halliday, the founder of the Oasis, and Og and his changes that were made, especially considering the fact that in the movie, he's also known as Curator.
Yeah, or the fact that Og had such a bigger role in the book versus not so much of a bigger role in the movie. He was barely there.
But there's also, because the book it's a however many page book, and like where it's all in first person and we're in his head and we see more things than you can put into a movie. So like the changes for Og needed to happen for the movie, and I liked the addition of Halliday's like brain tunnel treasure thing, whatever they called it, and
the
like
encyclopedia.
Yeah, that. So like I liked that he was the curator because that gave you the impression that yes, he is still watching and seeing things, but just not in the way that it was in the book, because like you have to change things for a 2.5 hour movie that you're not going to get everything into the book. Like I really liked that because it still surprised me, because I wasn't, probably should have picked up that the curator was Og, because like I kept waiting. I was like, when is Og going to come into play, because he's watching them? Where is this? Should have picked up that it was the curator. So like with that reveal, I was like, oh, that's cool. Like I really loved the curator and like Og's enrollment.
Like that whole entire way of sort of making it to where you can understand where Halliday gets things and the relationship between Halliday and Og. But I feel like he should have had a lot bigger role, especially with at the end of the book, they were all at Og's house and like they went to the party turned, or the birthday party turned into just a party. And I really liked the aspect in the book where he was invisible in the room in the basement, and he could really, like, he was seeing everything come together, and they could have found a way to add him more into the movie.
Maybe, but again, it's like a 2.5 hour adaptation. So like, I think the way that they did it was good because they had to change things to fit into an adaptation. Like if you're going to keep adding all these minute details and like scenes in the book that, yes, the book lovers love, like it wouldn't have been a 2.5 hour movie. It would have been a Netflix show, which would have been great. But at the same time, it worked as a 2.5 hour movie. And so like with the changes, it made sense that Og wasn't really there, but then you find out like, yes, he was paying attention. And I like that they had his big encyclopedia instead of Parzival's like journals and everything, because that just, it made it more like everyone has this access if they know where to look, but he still has his own personal like notes and findings and stuff. And it also helped Og keep track of what player and what avatars were getting what information and who to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
And what about
hi, kitty.
Oh my god, there's a cat.
Like really needing mom's attention.
Aww.
Okay, well he's welcome if he wants to add to the debate. Absolutely fine. I don't mind a few mews thrown out here and there. But what about Halliday?
Okay, so in the book, I considered him sort of autistic, kind of awkward and everything in the book. But in the movie, he was like a pervy creeper. Like to me, that's how I felt with him. I also got pissed when they started talking about the fact that he fell in love with Og's wife first and how they had a date and everything, and they're like that whole entire aspect, that was bullshit because that didn't happen either, because Og brought her to their D&D match. And like, I hated the fact that it sort of made Og and Halliday sort of have this awkwardness between them, which they did have in the book, but it wasn't because of a skewed date that Halliday was supposed to have with her versus Og is the one that brought her into the friendship.
I didn't feel creeper at all. Like, not the slightest. I loved Halliday. I thought he was, you know, a sweet, awkward person. And I just wanted to hug him, be like, it's okay. Like, you can be awkward. It's fine. And like the whole date aspect, again, it made sense, like in the terms of a movie, like they had to do something to bring her into it to have that connection, but also make it short enough and simple enough almost to not need to take 20 minutes to explain. So like that whole aspect, it worked for me.
I just feel like it cheapened the friendship between Og and Halliday in a way that it shouldn't have.
Well, before we finish this, I just want to ask you both one additional question, because I've already decided who's winning this round, and I want to find out from you both, in terms of the actors that they chose to represent the characters, was there any dissatisfaction? Who was your favorite, or who do you think could have done their job a little bit better?
I feel like the person who played Artemis could have done better.
Oh, I love her.
Yeah. I
love Olivia Cooke.
See, and I don't know her in anything else, but I feel like she, I don't know, maybe it was just the way the character was written in the movie. It just was like, sort of like a lovesick puppy, kind of just, I don't know. It rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't like her?
Olivia Cook is in the film adaptation of Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, and she was just recently in that weird dark comedy Thoroughbreds.
I saw that in November, and like seeing that before Ready Player One, and then she's also in the TV show for Bates Motel.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
that's very interesting.
Yeah, but I love her. She has not disappointed me in anything she's done yet.
Well, anyway, that wraps up round 2, and wow. Oh, wow. Best episode ever thus far, and the books are winning this round. No doubt in my mind. I mean, Courtney just took it, and I swear to God, it was getting to the point where I literally wanted to back myself into a corner and scream mercy, because whoa. Holy cow.
Again, most of my notes are don't blindly agree with her. You're fighting for the movie.
Gina, don't get me wrong. You did make some very valid points. And I personally will tell you both that my favorite character in the movie was IROC. I loved it. I loved IROC because I loved the way he looked. I loved the character that he was. And the thing that I loved the most about him was I know people like that. I know like true gamer nerds that are going to do everything and anything to sabotage the person that they just want to beat by any means necessary. So I related to that very much. I really did.
It also helped that it was TJ Miller and not like some like deep voice serious person, but it was like TJ Miller, who's a goofy actor and like he's a comedy actor. Like it helped that I don't know, it helped with IROCs.
Yeah. And I also thought that the guy who played Sorrento, I mean, I like Ben Mendelsohn. Ben Mendelsohn is in a lot of movies lately. He was in Star Wars Rogue One. He was Krennic, and I thought he was great as Krennic. And I know he's going to be in a couple more movies later on this year, but I personally was thrilled with the casting. I really was. It doesn't look like that we have any questions coming, but one of the few things that I'm very happy about is we're only 45 minutes into this. So that means we have so much time to go category number 3 because there is so much ground to cover. So I'm hoping that the both of you are ready because we are now tied for the victory, and we're going to be really diving into all the stuff because the last topic is the comparisons. The book and the movie, what worked, what didn't work, what is there, what is not there. So we're going to go one by one because I want to make sure that everybody's thoughts are being gathered properly. And more importantly, I want to make sure that I listen and mark down points where they need to be given. So the first area that we're going to discuss in terms of the comparisons is the fact that Courtney's wonderful OKC is not represented in the movie whatsoever.
Nope. It's in Columbus, which, you know, okay, I get it. I understand that Columbus is supposedly a known city and all of that crap, but I'm an Oklahoman, and when it popped up that it was Oklahoma City, I thought that that was so freaking cool. Now, I know I'm the minority who lives in Oklahoma, but the thing is that Oklahoma City is just as grungy, just as overpopulated, just as whatever as Columbus, but I feel like it's more centralized. And so when they were, you know, traveling and they were talking about distances and different things like that, it made sense that it was in the middle of the United States. And I know that this is a weak point, but I was pissed that it wasn't in the state that I live in the way that it was written. It was crap. I don't care if people don't know their geography, freaking learn it.
Yeah, you know, it's so hard to find Canada on the map, tucked all the way down there and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Believe me, my wife can tell you horror stories of her kids looking at maps.
Oh my God, don't even get me started. As a history and geography
teacher, yeah.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that doesn't know geography. Honestly, I didn't even realize that they changed the location in the movie because it had been so long since I had read the book. That was fine. That didn't bother me at all. I didn't even notice.
Well, I liked the fact that it was in Oklahoma City because, one, you know, it was so derelict and it was so, like, not on people's radar, not on people's maps, not on whatever. And I liked that about the fact that it was in Oklahoma City, is that, you know, you sort of hear about OKC, but you don't. And it made sense.
I also really didn't even know it was in Columbus. Like, they could have said it was in Florida for all I knew, and it would have went right over my head. The location didn't bother me at all.
Okay, the next topic of discussion is, of course, I've got to give this to the teacher. Ludus is not even in the film.
Which is, okay, so that made me so mad for multiple reasons. One, I wanted to see what Ludus looked like in CGI. I wanted to see the whole entire world with nothing but schools. I wanted to see how everything was cookie cutter and was exactly the same. I wanted to see all of this. And the fact that this is a YA book. Wade is a teenager. It starts with him in school. And the whole entire reason he was even able to get to the very first quest was because it was on freaking Ludus. You were supposed to be able to, and that's the only reason why H knew where the key was because Wade could only go to one place, and that was freaking school. And that was such a huge just hole. That was the first thing that pissed me off when we were watching the movie. Aaron was sitting right next to me, and I was like, where's Ludus, Aaron? Aaron, where's Ludus? Where is it? And he's like, shh. No. Where is it? He goes, I don't know. I'm watching it with you. I'm like, no, this is crap. This is crap. I was so pissed. So pissed.
Yeah, again, though, movie. Like, it had to fit. They had to make the changes, and they had to do that. Like, they still played in to him not really having money with, like, getting the coins during the race, and we'll get there. But, like, the fact that Ludus wasn't there, like, at first it kind of bugged me, but like watching it, it made sense in the terms of a 2.5-hour movie. It made sense that like there were different things.
I think that they could have put that in there. It would have been quick. It could have just been a nice glide around. It could have been him just leaving the school area and going back to his little hide-a-hole in the trailer park area. Like, they could have done it nice and quick, but they didn't. They didn't even do that. And the fact that like he's supposed to be this fat, overweight teenager, and that's why his character in the Oasis is sort of a little bit trimmer, but still poor looking. Like I needed that in my visual life, and it wasn't there.
It still makes sense though, because like the whole purpose of it being on Ludus and like the first challenge, which again we'll get into later, is it's all in his head. It's all to one player, that it's not really suitable for a movie. It's not really like people would be bored. And so it kind of works, it not being on Ludus and them aging up the characters. And kind of like I mentioned earlier, they're playing to a different audience. They want an older audience to see the movie, so they didn't make it fully YA. So they were making it more gamer-like to get more people who game interested in it. Instead of it just following Parzival around himself trying to find this, it adds in a whole new element to it not being on Ludus.
I still feel like I know that we're going to get to it, but the fact that it should have been on Ludus with Joust and War Games, and then it's a freaking race, like that pissed me off. And it should have been somewhere that only he could have gone to because of how poor he is. And then he automatically in the Oasis automatically has the DeLorean, which is like, it's supposed to show him going up, and yes, he's running out of gas and things like that, but like that's a really expensive car.
You also don't know that he automatically had it because it said it started 5 years ago. So there's a whole 5-year chunk that we didn't see, that had it been like a show, maybe we would have seen how he got that car and how he got the money and how he was able to do things. You don't really know. Like, yeah, he just has it, but he might not have. Like, he still could have worked up to it because it did say that he started in school and that he's working with school equipment. So like that still could have happened, and had we had a Netflix show or something, we could have seen it, but you didn't. So like they're relying on people who read the book to realize, oh, this is how he did it. So like they're still showing him poor enough for the people who didn't read the books to get it. So, but they kind of fast-tracked it almost.
I can see that.
Okay, so let's elaborate a little bit more, even though we already did touch upon it. Let's also try and see the importance of it in the story. And let's discuss a little bit more about the Halliday Research Center. Let's talk about how it drives the story. Let's talk about how it compares to how the clues were found in the book.
So the Halliday Research Center, I know that they did that because it was sort of a nod to his journals and things like that, but to make it a more visual way to have everyone be able to see it and different things like that. Like, I get that. but it didn't really show how much research and how much everything that H and Artemis and Wade had to go through to find these little bitty quirks, these little bitty things within Halliday's life. Like, I miss the basement and all of the information and everything like that. Like, that wasn't there in the movie. The basement was sort of there for like 5 seconds, but that is where like the majority of them talking it out, like him figuring out, that's where he started playing Joust, which whatever. So I know we'll get to that. I don't want to go ahead. But everything was there for a reason within the book. And yes, I know that it's an adaptation. We have to cut things out. We have to have a shorter version. But I like the research center just because it does have that visual effect. But I still feel like there should have been more digging in the book or in the movie to understand. Oh, I'm sorry, I have an echo. Well, Cammie's Corner says that I have an echo.
I didn't even hear an echo. I'm completely fine. But thanks for letting us know, Cammie. I appreciate that. Anyway, Gina.
I like how they did the research center and like how it shows you the mass amounts of like stuff that was in all of his journals and in his brain and everything. Like, again, you still get the idea that they did have to do their own research outside of it to know where to have the curator take them, because it's very clear the curator only takes you to where you tell him to take you. He doesn't give you anything. And so like, I like how it showed like the swiping of all of the images, like, okay, we're going to go here. And then like, I really like how they did all that. It was a great addition.
Cool. I liked that about it. It was very, very cool. That's one of the only things that I liked about the movie.
Okay, now let's get into the next topic, which will be broken up into various chunks, and I will base it upon that. The 3 quests and the 3 keys.
You mean the non-quests and like the basically non-keys of the freaking movie?
Case and point. So let's discuss the copper key, and that of course includes Joust and War Games versus the race.
Okay, so if I keep going first, you can like cut me off. It's totally fine.
No, this is
fine.
The thing. No, let me just say this, because you're making a point, and I appreciate that. The flow is fantastic. I don't want to disrupt a good thing. Continue, please.
Okay, so when it comes to the copper key, the Joust, War Games, different things like that, like I love, again, I know we already talked about Ludus and the fact that the cave area and everything, I get it. I get that, you know, that would have taken too much time and different things like that. That aside, it's absolute bullshit that they did a race where all he had to do was put the car in reverse and go backwards. What gamer is not going to know to try freaking to go backwards? It wouldn't take that many years for someone to go in reverse. That was absolute bullshit. They could have done something a little bit more. Yes, I know War Games and copyright and different things like that, and that might have been boring for some people to watch, but seriously, Joust would have been badass just to see him go up against this big, huge demon guy who's all badass looking. Like, that still would have been cool CGI. And the whole entire fact that the race was just going backwards, like, whatever, that was crap.
I like the race visually, but yeah, anyone who's played any kind of video game, at the second you can, you're gonna try everything. Like, someone would have figured that out day 2.
Yeah, like they're...
I liked the race visually, and I like that they added like other people, and it did do a good job of showing, hey, nope, sorry, I can't come up to the front with you. I have to go to the back because I need coins for gas. Like, it helped show how poor he was and everything. And then it did like introduce you to more of the characters like the IOI and Artemis in a more timely fashion, and it wasn't so one player. But at the same time, someone would have figured out that reverse thing super quick.
Not to mention an excuse to show you as many pop culture references as you possibly could see in terms of cars, because there were plenty.
I understand, but like, it just it could have been done so much better, and that was probably the one that pissed me off the most, and that was where like I shut down in the movie. Like, I was like, okay, you know, we're going through this, not in Oklahoma City. Okay. All right. We're not doing Ludus. Okay. You know, I'm still going to try and watch it. I'm still going to do it. And then it was like, oh, all I got to do is go reverse. And then he freaking goes in reverse. And I'm like, are you serious right now? Like, this is crap.
It was still interesting how he figured out to go again. Like, he should have figured out before, but I like how they added how he figured it out, like going through the research center and like it just being one thing Halliday says and being like, well, maybe. And then I really did like how they did the whole reverse track with him underground and like all of the like lights and stuff. Oh, it was so cool. But yeah, the whole reverse thing was like
really the T-Rex and everything.
Yeah.
Like, so cool.
I did think
it was not what should have been.
At first, whenever they said, oh, you have to go in reverse, the first thing I thought of, which would have been cooler, was, oh, you have to reverse between who's the Godzilla is who we couldn't get past? Or,
no, I think
Kong,
it was
Kong.
Yeah, Kong. It was King Kong.
Like, so at first I thought, oh, the only way you can get past King Kong is by going in reverse. Like maybe the reverse lights on his car was gonna be like tricked Kong or something, and he wouldn't go after you. Or like I thought you had to reverse past
mouth. That would have been cool.
Like, that would have been neat instead of just reversing the whole course.
But to make it a little bit more difficult than that, it was absolutely crap. They just wanted to show how badass CGI they could do. Like that's what they wanted to do there.
Which it was cool, especially in IMAX.
But a question that I want to throw out to you, Courtney, is as people, it's a very different audience when it comes to films. And I was sitting with my wife. This is going to be one of the very few times where I actually jump in to ask another question. But when I was watching this movie with my wife, who never read the book, when we finished, she wanted me to tell her about all the comparisons, what had changed and what had not. And when I told her about how the first task to get the Copper Key was him doing the entire reenactment of War Games as Matthew Broderick's character, she said to me that would have been the most boring thing I ever watched.
See, I think that they could have done like the very first clip whenever he's like playing in the morning and then he has to give it up to leave. And then they could have done sort of a montage, which is so super freaking 80s, by the way. How cool would have a montage would have been? And then they could have montaged through and then ended with the joust all badass like, and then it would have been fine. Like, I feel like they still could have included Ludus. They still could have included the fact that H figured out where the key was. And I feel like they could have done it, but that they just didn't want to. And they wanted to just do a stupid reverse, car race thing and just put as many pop culture references as possible just to make everybody that was raised in the 80s happy.
All right, so
which is also kind of the book too, though, just filled with pop culture things. But like also, my mom, the same thing. She's like, if they did that, she wouldn't have gotten it. It would have went completely over her head. And two, she's just like, that sounds boring to me.
Yeah.
Did it make you want to see War Games? Just curious, because I had to watch that movie again.
Aaron and I watched War Games and Monty Python and the Holy Grail before we went and saw the movie because we were that freaking excited, and then it was bullshit.
I love it. I absolutely love it, Courtney. I really do. Let's move on to the Jade Key, which is perfect Pac-Man score plus extra life versus The Shining.
My favorite. I really liked that they did the Shining thing. And like I just saw The Shining for the first time this past October. So had I not, I probably would have been like, what's going on? Like, I think this is The Shining, but I really liked that addition to it. And like, it's such a classic horror movie that pretty much everyone has seen it, unless you're like me and have just seen it for the first time recently. But I really, really liked that. And the Pac-Man thing was like, it would have been boring to just watching him play Pac-Man, but I still like that the coin was added in and like the extra little nod at like, hey, here's this coin, like you're going to use this later. So those who read the book understood like when the curator gave him that coin, like, oh, well, I made a bet for you. This is all I have in my pockets. Like that worked. But the whole Shining scene, and especially like with H never seeing The Shining, like since I had just seen it, like I kind of felt like that would have been me in that situation, and how his avatar is just like screaming like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I loved that part. That was my favorite challenge.
Like that wasn't the main thing. The main thing was him going to the house of Halliday's childhood and going in there, and that was the whole entire like Jade Key. The Pac-Man extra life thing was like he was being all butthurt about Artemis, and he was going around and just looking through the areas of Halliday's life, and then he comes across Pac-Man and he gets the extra life there. The Shining thing I thought was stupid. I thought that it was a waste of time throughout the whole entire part. They could have then done War Games kind of that way, or they could have done Monty Python and the Holy Grail that way. At least that would have been a nod towards what was in the book. The Shining didn't make sense to me, especially because he never went out on a date with her to go and see a movie. He didn't like, that was not part of the book at all, which I know like they needed to put something in there to make it more connecting to why he, you know, had feelings for her and different things like that. But I thought that that was the most boring and stupid part of the movie. I was like, I've seen The Shining. I'm like, but this has nothing. I was not okay with that.
Oh, I loved it. I have nothing else to add.
Okay, so now let's move on to the Crystal Key, which was Monty Python and the Holy Grail versus Adventure.
Mm-hmm. Which Adventure, that was the little the key that was like sort of hidden, right?
It was the very first game to feature an Easter egg.
Yeah, an Easter egg, and I thought that was really, really cool. I did want to see Monty Python though, like that they could have done a nod to it. They could have done like something a little bit in that area, because that is such an iconic 80s thing that you would have thought that they would have really done something with. I don't know if they just couldn't get the copyrights or whatever.
No, they did give a nod to Monty Python. They had the holy hand grenade.
Yes, but a lot of people would not have. Like, I feel like if they would have done like the little horse thing or something like that, like something that's a little bit more like, you know, hey, look what that is kind of thing. I think that would have been a lot better. But I liked Adventure because that was in the book, trying to find the Easter egg, so that I was happy with. But I still feel like they could have done a little bit more. I feel like the last part of putting the key in, you needed 3 people to put that key in to open it up. It was all about teamwork. It was all about all of that, and it just, yeah.
The Monty Python thing didn't bother me. I've also only seen bits and pieces of it, so I wasn't that attached to the whole thing. I did like how they did the adventure, and that whole sequence. Just, there's so much, like rewatching it time and time again, I'm gonna catch so much more things, and like all the different avatars and things that are in, and like that whole sequence and like getting there. And then the 3 people with I didn't remember that either. Again, I purposely did not reread the book.
All teamwork, like that's what it all was supposed to be at the end. Like that was the whole entire message. Halliday's like, don't be alone. That is the whole entire message of everything. You need people in your life. You need friends. I've cut myself off from everyone else in the world, and this was all about like, don't be alone. Don't be by yourself. Like, you need people in your life as well, and that bothered me, as well as the Gundam fight. That bothered me too, because it was supposed to be a little bit more badass, and they were supposed to actually work for those. Like, the only reason why they had the robots was because they beat the game in the they beat the game, and they were able to pick their Gundam that they wanted, the big robot, whatever it is that they were doing.
The mecha.
Yeah,
the teamwork was still there though, because he wouldn't even have gotten to Adventure without the others like helping him get there. And so like the teamwork is still there, even if he didn't use 3 people to get into the gate.
Okay, so now let's move on to how the IOI, it's predominant in the book, but I feel that there's a lot added in the film, particularly the room that is filled with Halliday historians and puzzle solvers.
Yes,
I really liked that.
I will say I did really like that in the movie. I'm not gonna say that I didn't. I liked having a visual of them all looking the same, of them all being just as nerdy and things like that. Like I did really, really like that aspect of the movie. So I'm not even gonna argue with that.
Especially since in the book, the only part of the IOI you get is when Wade is a prisoner, and so like. And how, like, that's one thing I love about movie adaptations, is you get other aspects of things that you don't see from a first-person perspective.
Yeah, I did really like the IOI and the puzzle solvers.
Okay, so now let's talk about Ogg's birthday party turned into flat-out dance party.
That bothered me because I feel like pushed the story along more. Like you got to understand Og a little bit more. And with the dance party, it was just a dance party. Everybody was invited. Whereas with Og's birthday party, they were specifically invited. It was like a close kind of crew. And like, that's why it was such a big deal that they were going and, you know, worried about the IOI and different things like that. I feel like it would not have been that much extra to make it Og's birthday party versus just a party.
Yeah, but if
DJ being badass and stuff, like I wanted to see him get down with his bad self.
even if they made it his birthday party though, like then they still would have had to go into adding extra things and like more so it would have they could have taken IROC out. Yeah, but again, like that worked with like how they rearranged things. So it was fine being just a dance party. Like, because again, they would have had to put more in there for Og, and like it was already a 2.5-hour movie, and then it would have been even longer.
Titanic, I mean, that would have been fine.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're going to have some fun with this one. We're doing a great job, by the way, so far, everyone. The next discussion I want to have is, while the book pulls Artemis and Wade further apart, the film tries every attempt they can to bring them closer together.
Yeah, which was crap because that totally takes Artemis's individuality and her whole entire badassness away, because in the movie she's all, oh, I'm going to kidnap you for the rebellion. That didn't freaking exist in the book, but whatever. And I'm going to be closer to you and different things like that, versus in the book she's trying to push him away. She's trying to make it to where she is focused on this aspect. She doesn't need to trust anyone. Like that was her whole entire character, and you took the, I'm going to keep coming back to it, the depth of the character away and made her just this girl who goes and, you know, rescues this guy and is automatically in love and everything like that. They could have done something that showed how much their characters went through from all of the, like, they could have done a montage of them, like, getting to know each other, like, different things like that. But, like, they didn't even show really how much they were sort of in love with each other, but then not, like, it cheapened their relationship in the movie. I was in love with their relationship in the book, but it cheapened it in the movie, and I was not happy.
They still showed her pushing him away, though, so it wasn't complete insta-love. Like, as soon as he, like, caved and was like, I'm Wade, she stopped. She was like, no, don't tell me this. We need to be anonymous. Like, I cannot know who you are. You can't know who I am. And she left. So, like, they did at least still have that element in the movie. It just wasn't as in depth as it was in the book, because again, from a movie standpoint, there's only so much you can do, and like you need to advance things along fast enough and in a good enough way to make it understandable and to like really get at it, but at the same time it needs to be fast enough. So I didn't feel it was super insta-lovey. It did go a little fast, but the whole movie, the whole plot point was sped up in a way that it wasn't in the book. So like we didn't have months on end of them just talking, because as far as the movie went, it was like boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is that I think it was too fast. They could have done little things here and there to make it seem as though more time had gone between them getting to know each other, and them sort of having a falling out and things like that. Her just kidnapping him is totally against her whole entire character in the book in general.
I kind of like that they didn't, though, because again, like from a movie standpoint, it has to be done extremely well if they're going to speed up things. And like, if you just have a random 3 months later pop in, it has to be done well, or it just cheapens.
They had the money. They could have done it. I mean, like they could have figured out a way to make it have more depth in their relationship than, oh, hey, I'm going to kidnap you, and now we're going to be, you know, together, and all of that stuff. Like, I feel it cheapened it for me. It made me mad.
Yeah, as a movie, it didn't ruin it as much for me, because like at that point they had already changed so much. Like it was just, you just had to roll with the movie with what they were going to do.
I'll take whatever it is that they throw at me that's not the book. And then me, on the other hand, I'm like, now I'm getting more pissed. I will not see this movie again. I have seen it once, and that is the most I will ever see it. I will not see it again.
They made it their own being. Like, they made it their own thing. And so, like, again, from a film standpoint, it really worked. Like, the flow of it worked. The whole aspect. The whole them kidnapping her thing or him thing, I was a little confused at what was happening, but then like when she like started explaining and everything, again, I don't know, I felt like the pacing was really well done with that whole element. Plus it also gave the IOI and Sorrento the excuse to finding the guy that kidnapped him, into that's how they found them. So like all of it, like the little bits and pieces that they changed worked in connection enough to still stay somewhat true to the book, like the true plot lines of the book. Because like had she not had him kidnap Wade, then they would have never found the security footage of that guy with the tattoo, and then they would have never found their hideout, and then she would have never given herself up to be taken into that whole part, which we'll get into that because that was completely different.
That's another thing that made me mad, was that she wasn't even the one that was supposed to be infiltrating the IOI. He was supposed to be doing that. And that was a huge aspect of the book, about him going in and, you know, him having all of that time working to get all of his life, like him in the apartment, becoming a whole entire different being from what he was, to really building himself, to finishing, finding the Easter egg and everything like that. You turn around and you just take all of that away, and she's the one at IOI whenever he's supposed to be there, and he's the one that's supposed to be in the belly of the beast.
Let's elaborate a little bit more on that, because that's the next topic. The concept of him getting the job offer from IOI and then getting the apartment to get all of his gear up, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the whole swapping of who is infiltrating the IOI at this point. Let's, Gina, we're up to you. Go for that. Start.
I did miss that whole part of like it being him, but again, film, cinematography, timing, it worked for me. It was different enough that I wasn't scratch that. It was like different enough, but similar enough that it didn't really bother me because it was a film. Now, had it been a Netflix show and they did that, I would be completely pissed, because they would have the time to actually like do a whole episode of him getting the apartment and everything. But the fact that it wasn't, I liked it. It worked. And like you still saw Parzival and Wade figuring out how to save her and how to like talk her into, really she saved herself. He just talked her into where to find all the stuff she needed from a bird's eye perspective to get into it. So I did not mind that. Like at first it was like, okay, they're taking her instead. But again, from a cinematography standpoint, and it being 2.5 hour movie, the pacing was fine for me.
See, I know that, you know, part of it did get a little bit too much, him in his apartment in the book and different things like that. Like, but I loved seeing him, one, build his gear and understand how to do things a little bit more, and working in IOI, and then going and becoming the mole within, and really getting into the system and like showing all of that. That would have been really, really cool to see, sort of him living in these little barracks and different things like that. What I was mad about is that she wasn't in that aspect at all. And the fact that they changed the whole entire character, like you're supposed to be seeing Wade grow. Wade is the main character in this book. He should have been the main character within the movie. And that takes out a whole entire character growth of him away. And it gives it to another character who I felt they just needed to give her a little bit more screen time than they needed to give Wade.
I think it worked though, because by doing that, they gave Wade and H really the whole aspect of growing and how they figured out how to trick Sorrento. Like that was the whole main point, was they were able to capture Sorrento and get into his VR systems and really kind of trick him into thinking that they had captured him in real life instead of it actually being in the Oasis. And so like that helped them grow and like really connect as a team, and like so the whole team element in the movie, it worked.
Best friends that you should have seen earlier in the film that you didn't. So it sort of goes back to the beginning of the book, where you could have built all of that friendship from the beginning that they just decided to miss and then throw in at the end. I didn't like the fact that they made Sorrento so dumb. Oh yeah, he's this big, huge, badass character, and he's gonna put his password on a sticky note on his chair. Are you freaking kidding me? Like, that made me mad too. Like that was just like a big, huge, like, here's your sign. Like, here's how we're going to defeat them. Like
that's kind of believable though, since he literally has everyone do everything else for him, that he would not remember what his stuff was and that he would just have it lying around and not think about it.
Like, go
That
hurry up.
I mean, like, let me ask a question here, because that thought just came up into my head. Does something like that make a bit of a condescending remark towards older people who are not technology savvy? I just want to throw that out there.
I mean, I do know older people that keep their password like on a post-it note on their computer. So like that whole part was believable to me.
See, it would have been believable had like his character throughout the whole entire book be dumbed down, sort of just like this pawn kind of guy. But in the book, he's like this badass, like super genius kind of guy. And for him to have the password on his chair is just so stupid to me. It feels like they were like, oh, we got to kind of end this now. It's about 2.5 hours. What's the fastest way we can end it? Oh, password on a Post-it note. Well, let's do this.
But at the same time, like they could have easily made it like H is a hacker. Like she could have hacked into it as easily as, you know,
which that would
could have.
See,
but at the same time, like they dumped his character down from the get-go. Like it made sense with the way that they made his character and the fact that he had his little minions and the finale and everything. So like it made sense with his character in the movie.
Really wanted to please the fans, they could have thrown a Spaceballs reference in there and had them discover that the password was 12345, and then have someone say, "I wonder if anyone has that number on their luggage." Like that would have been funny.
That would have been funny, and that would have made sense.
Mm-hmm. Just a thought. You just made me think of that. Anyway, okay, let's get into another hot button topic here, and that is the fact that Daito does not die. And on an expanded notion, nobody dies.
Yeah. Which I think that they wanted to please everyone and didn't want anybody to be butthurt, didn't want anybody to actually have real feels in the movie, because that part actually gave me feels in the book that made the book even more amazing to me whenever they did kill such a big main character of the high five, and they turned around and they took your feelings and they like crushed your heart into a billion pieces. That made sense in the book. That gave them even more fire to finish this, to get this going. And the fact that they didn't do that, I think one was because of the age differences they put in the movie, with one being a kid and then one like being just a little older of a kid. They didn't want to kill kid. Like they should have had someone die, because that was what gave them the fire to really finish it off and be like, no, this whole entire IOI, everything that's bullshit. We don't want that in the hands of someone that evil. It showed how evil IOI was and what they were willing to do to get the Easter egg.
I mean, technically, we do see the stacks blow up and presumably people die at that ass point. So technically, there is death in the movie. But yeah, I agree. They should have had his death in the movie.
I mean, look,
there's no reason for them not to.
The fact that there were people were thinking that they weren't going to kill off Dobby in the Deathly Hallows, the fact that they kept that in, look at the impact.
Yes, exactly. Like that made them even more, you know, gung-ho to get rid of Voldemort, to like actually like to kill such innocence and things like that from Harry Potter's standpoint, to kill that he needed to die. That I loved the character, but that is what it makes you connect to them more and be even more on the side of the protagonists and be like, you know what, we are going to really kick this guy's ass.
Did they I don't remember, but did they kill or at least allude to killing the dude that kidnapped Wade in the movie? Because I know they found him. I don't remember if they alluded to them killing him or not.
I don't remember it either. Again, I only saw the movie once.
Cheesy Swirl just threw out, yeah, I saw that Courtney just responded. Cheesy Swirl just threw out another major main character death, and that was from Serenity with Wash. Oh my God, that wrecked me. That totally wrecked me.
Exactly, and like that's what needed to happen. Like even in Buffy the Vampire Slayer with Spike. Like,
no, I've just started Buffy.
Oh shoot! Okay, I'm gonna rectify this. Truthfully, Gina, it's not her fault. 20 years? You should have seen it by now if you really wanted to.
So side note real quick, I just started Buffy and I just got to episode 7 and I watched it Thursday night. Had no idea that Angel was a vampire.
I am a religious Buffy the Vampire Slayer Angel fan. I have seen all of them at least 10 times each. I can do them verbatim, especially the very first season. Literally verbatim. I'm so sorry for spoilers.
I told you guys that X-Files story, right? Did I tell you that one a while back? The one where I actually called my friend and I was telling him about how the X-Files ended, and he said to me, "Why'd you spoil it for me?" And I said to him, "I didn't even know you watched X-Files."
Yeah.
Like, I thought we were friends. That is just not right.
I'm a horrible person. I'm going to go and jump off a cliff now.
No, you can't, because we have a show to finish, and you have a wedding, to go to.
I do.
Right now. You know something? I'm going to turn a negative into a positive, as I always do. When The Half-Blood Prince came out as a book, I actually called my sister and asked which character died. And she told me before I even started reading. And I said, well, now I want to know, how do we get from point A to point B? So use that notion. Now see how the rest of the show leads
You're
up to
season
that
1.
point.
You don't even know who Spike is yet.
I don't, but I know the name.
I know Buffy and I know who Spike is.
See, I know enough, and like I always knew who Angel was, and I knew that Angel got a spinoff. Had no idea that he was a vampire until I just got to that episode. It's like okay. I was telling my coworkers yesterday.
I realize what happens to Spike. When does this happen? And I'm not telling you that.
Yeah, good. So go from point A to point B. Use that now.
I'm just gonna say Spike's my favorite character.
I mean, I also, when I started watching Grey's Anatomy, I spoiled myself for like most of their deaths because I got excited and I wanted to look up like fan things, and then all the fan things are, of course, their deaths. It was like,
my wife has told me about every death on ER, and I have no intentions of watching.
No, I just started watching that one too, so stop.
I'm not saying a word.
My boss actually spoiled a main character's death, and like the whole time I didn't know what she was talking about, and one of my coworkers was like, "Gina doesn't know. Shut up. Gina doesn't know. Stop talking. Gina doesn't know."
The camaraderie in your office setting. I really do. Anyway, you see, we have so much time. I have no issue that we rambled on a little bit and trailed off. But now let's talk about something else in regards to the books and the movies, of course. And that is the fact that when a movie is a movie, and Gina, while it may sound repetitive to some, she is making very valid points when she talks about how movies are made for the sake of being the movies that they are. So there was tons of room for extra pop culture references throughout the film. And in the book, there's tons of pop culture references too. However, there's a very big difference in terms of reading it on the page of the book and actually seeing a pop culture reference. So let's discuss that extra space that the film had for the pop culture references, and if it was good or if it was bad.
One thing that did bother me is that Spielberg refused to use his own stuff because that's such a big part of the book. But at the same time, it added for different pop culture elements, and like it really depended on what licensing they got and everything. And so from a movie aspect, like I get it. And it was cool to see like Hello Kitty in there and like all the different things. And there's so much that like you pick up things that you don't pick up the first time. So my second time seeing it, it was in regular 2D, so it was on a smaller screen, and like there wasn't as much flying at me because of the 3D IMAX, and like just picking up all the different things. And I know I mentioned this to you guys, but like specifically, I've read that Bernie Burns from Rooster Teeth gave permission to use Ruby, and I'm so excited to get that DVD and like comb through all of the Avatar things to find where Ruby's at, because
I need to do that too, because I love Ruby. I'm a huge Ruby fan.
I actually just rewatched season 1 because I'm going to read the manga, and the manga takes place in between season 1 and 2.
Oh, cool.
So, like I watched that before this live show. I rewatched season 1.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I really like all of the pop culture icon, the Cars, the Iron Giant. Like I loved all of that, and I loved seeing it pop up from the page and into the movie. I'm not gonna lie and say that was not. That was not cool, because that was really cool.
My favorite pop culture reference, and as soon as it happened, I was so excited. Like, I'm pretty sure I would did a little thing in my seat. Was whenever H was like, "Hey, use this little guy," and then threw Chucky at Parzival.
Yes,
I was just like, "Oh my god, yes!"
That was hilarious.
That was fantastic. It was my favorite pop culture reference.
I had one of those moments too. My moment was the Mad Ball grenade. Like, I'm literally smiling and I'm jumping, and my wife is saying, "What the hell are you doing?" I'm like, "There's a freaking Mad Ball on the screen." She's like, "What's a Mad Ball?" I'm like, she's an 80s kid. She was born in 85, but she was way too young to remember Mad Balls. And as a boy growing up in the 80s, Mad Balls were was the boys' thing. Like, every boy I knew had tons of Mad Balls to collect. But I will say, even though we didn't have the greatest of things to say today about the race was my favorite part, because I will say this. I am not a car guy. Like, I can't fix a car to save my life. I just drive cars.
You don't need to.
That is true. I just drive cars, but I love film cars. And this is my favorite pop culture car. I am a Mach 5 nut. When I spotted the Mach 5 and Christine and the Batmobile and the A-Team van, like the Mad Max's Road Warrior car, like those things just lifted my spirits because I love everything about them. And just the fact that Parzival's car is a DeLorean. I mean, like, come on.
Yeah, I was happy with DeLorean there. Like, I was perfectly fine with all of the pulp culture. I would have liked more, but in general, I think that was one of the only cool aspects of the movie.
I would have liked to seen some kind of Harry Potter reference.
Yeah, me too, especially considering the fact that it's a Warner Brothers company.
Yeah.
I can see that, like, wanting them to see like in their wardrobes, their Harry Potter like little student wardrobes and things like that. Like, I would have loved that, but then again, that's not 80s.
Yeah, but that was stuff that's not 80s in the movie.
Stuff. There was lots of 90s stuff in there. Like the fact that they had the Ninja Turtles were in the movie, but it was the recent Michael Bay Ninja Turtles and not the classic 1980s, 1990s Ninja Turtles.
And then, like, Ruby, if Ruby really is in it, if they did use her, she's 2013.
And all of the Overwatch references and the Street Fighter references and all of that.
It'll be interesting, like, combing through everything. Because, like, even Ernest Cline himself has said, like, people haven't found everything that he's hidden in the book, like, in the words. And so, like, that's even more true with the film because there's, like, so many little tiny faces that you can pick out from all the various, like, major scenes.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I know is not in the movie is any property from Disney, because I'm pretty certain that they couldn't get the rights to Disney. But you know something? As someone who feels that sharing means caring, I still have no idea why movie companies will not share their properties. It's like I have said,
like it would have given anyone who would have given permission for all of the pop culture references and things like that, they would have gotten a boost in sales. They would have gotten a boost in all of that, all of those things. That's what I don't understand. I mean, I see that in the booktube world too. I'm going to boost all of my friends. Like, I don't care who they are. If they've got 2 subscribers versus if they've got 10,000 subscribers, I'm still going to boost them because they're good people. And that's what I do. So I don't understand that.
Even it even would have been good, like, with, like, the worlds, if we just would have seen, like, one world with, Cinderella's castle and then one world with the Hogwarts castle. That would have been enough.
Like all they had to do was and that would have shown how vast the Oasis is. How there are so many different worlds and things like that, which I guess we didn't also see his freaking little comet thing, his little world that he created of himself. Did we see that in the movie? I don't think we did.
No.
Whatever. I mean, I know but
no, I mean, would have been really awesome. I think that one of the coolest things that would have a great nod to pop culture was when they went to the Halliday Research Center, because it's like a big library. How cool would it have been to see Belle reading a book? It would have made so much sense.
That would have been awesome.
Yeah, because
and Hermione.
Or Hermione.
It would have been even cool, like, seeing them together since.
I have a shirt that Aaron bought me that has Belle sitting on one stack of books and Hermione sitting on another stack of books.
I love it.
Yeah, I also don't think there was any properties of Nintendo. There was lots from Capcom, but not from Nintendo. I didn't see Mario or Link or
Yeah, I don't think
anything
so
to that
either.
degree. I didn't see that.
They're
But
real picky with their copyright too, though.
yeah, same. Yeah. Oh God, are you kidding me? Funko's been trying to get the licenses to
Mhm.
Nintendo for years. We actually thought that they had it, but they don't anymore, unfortunately. It would have also been cool to actually see someone as a pop culture reference as a Funko Pop in the game. That would have been cool.
That would have
Yeah.
been great.
But anyway, we just wasted a good chunk of time, which is exactly what I was intending for. So we're heading into the last half hour. We may end early, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Let's talk about the overall feeling of reading the book and watching the movie in regards to the average reader or a true video game player or and average moviegoers. Like, would the adaptation of the book, the way that most fans of the books would have liked it to see, would it have been something that the average moviegoer or someone that never played a video game before, because believe it, there are people that exist like that, would it have made a significant difference in terms of how the movie ended up doing in the box office?
Go ahead.
I think it would have, only because they, like I mentioned before, to sound like a broken record, like they kind of formed it and shaped it to appeal to that wider audience. And like specific example, which was great, like right after, oh, another thing, side note. So right after the movie started, we were sitting and waiting for the credits to roll, because it's like, this would be the perfect movie to have an end credit scene, because it's all about hiding things and Easter eggs. So like, I think they really missed their chance to not put an end credit scene in there, because there wasn't. Like, we waited, but like sitting there and waiting for the credits to roll, the guys behind us, I was listening to them, and like I told my mom, I was like, hold on, I want to hear what they're saying. The one guy had read the book and his two friends hadn't. And the other guy was like, oh, that was so cool, blah, blah, blah. And then the guy who had read the book was like, yeah, I really liked that. But, and then started going through like some of the differences. And his friend was just like, oh, that would have been weird. And like kind of the same thing like your wife said, like, I don't know if I would have gotten it, but then he was still interested in the book. And so his friend was like, I'll let you borrow it like tomorrow. And so like, I think the movie as a whole probably got more people interested in the book.
I do feel like the movie took the awesomeness and the in-depth characters and the end sort of storyline and crapped on it and gave it to non-readers and people who just wanted to watch a fun movie. That's sort of how I felt like the movie ended up being overall. Like the movie itself, if I hadn't read the book, I probably would have really liked the movie. But reading the book, the movie is horrible.
See, and I have to disagree with that, because I love both. Like, the book is one of my favorites. This movie is now one of my favorites. And as sad as it is, there are more movie watchers who don't read than there are movie watchers who read. So at least they knew their audience. And the fact that they did play into like gamers too, like I've seen a few like gamers who are like, this is so cool to see my video games like in this world. And like, that's also kind of like, again, they knew who they were playing to. And I think they did it well. I'm pretty sure I'm in the minority of the people who loved the book who actually liked the movie. But there's also like, you have to disconnect the book from the movie. And it took me a long time to be okay doing that. A long time. There's still some books that I want to be done well and like adapted in a certain way. But for the most part, I'm starting to enjoy movies for what they are, in difference of the book. Like example, Maze Runner. Those movies are completely different from their books, and I love them both separately. The only thing I'm still super pissed at with like adaptations is My Sister's Keeper, and I will never let that go. I will never let that adaptation go. It sucks.
Yeah,
but like for the most part, I'm okay with adaptations
of the Harry Potter book and the Harry Potter movies. Like I'm fine with those adaptations and some of the things that they had to drop there, because they still got the overall essence of what was going on. But I feel like in this one, they dropped the ball, specifically with the characters' depth and everything like that. Like that's what pissed me off the most, is that they took away the relationships in which the characters grew within the book. They could have found ways to make those characters, like, you understand how those characters are feeling a little bit more without drawing it out too long. I feel like they really took that away.
I actually think that they did an okay job, like with that. Like in comparison, if we're going to take two adaptations, the fourth Harry Potter movie. The book has so much in it. All they focused on in the movie was the trials and the tournament rather. And so like with Ready Player One, I think they did a good job of like incorporating all of the trials and the keys and everything, but also giving like their personal lives and some like more background info and stuff instead of just doing, because they could have been completely horrible. They could have just done the 3 challenges. Oh, hi buddy. And then they could have done just like 3 challenges and then like called it a day. That would have sucked. But I think they did a fairly good job of like marrying it all together and making it its own being.
It is definitely its own being. I would not put it anywhere near, like in aspects of adaptation on a scale of, 1 to 10, I might give it a 2. Whereas the adaptations of Harry Potter through the books, I would give, it depends on the book and the movie, I would give them anywhere between like a 5 and 7. A movie that did perfect, like damn near perfect on adaptation, is The Princess Bride. Like that.
Which happens to be a movie that I don't like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that either.
It's one of my favorites. But the book, I watched the movie first as a kid, and then I was like, oh, it's a book? And so I read the book and then watched the movie again, and it's damn near verbatim. Like, I could open up the book, and it's verbatim. The only, they took out some small parts, but it's parts that didn't really matter within the book aspect. Like, it could have been cut out of the book and been fine. But that was, like, yeah.
Yeah,
I think a big part of the Ready Player One adaptation that like I'm so okay with is the fact that Ernest Cline himself wrote the screenplay. Like, as long as it has the author's backing of it, that makes it easier for me to accept it. Like with Love, Simon, from the get-go, Becky was like, I'm okay with this. I like how they changed things. I love everything. She gave her like approval and said that she liked it. So that helped being a fan of the book going in and separating the two. So the fact that Ernest himself wrote it and like all of these changes came from him himself helped.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like he butchered his own book.
Well, it's also something that is happening now a great deal in the film world. The fact that they're actually getting the writers of the source material
is a lot better,
more of a voice. And I think that it was J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter that really set the tone for going in that trend. I mean, thank goodness Peter Jackson didn't botch Lord of the Rings, because the Tolkien family did not want those books turned into films. What broke? Something broke.
Aaron dropped something off of his side table. He said something.
Okay, as long as there's no broken glass or anything.
No broken glass.
But a perfect example would be one of my favorite movies, and I've never read the book, but the author of the book is the director and the screenwriter, and that's The Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Oh, I love it.
The movie is fantastic.
It is pretty spot on to the book. Like, I read the book after I saw the movie, and after seeing the movie of that one, I thought that I probably was missing something having not read the book. Like, that's just how I felt, even though I loved it so much. But then reading the book, I didn't miss a thing. It's so...
It wasn't my type of book. I hated the book. I
loved it.
I hated it. So I never saw the movie, even though I love Emma Watson. I haven't seen the movie because I despised the book. I'm pretty sure I would just not like the movie too.
Yeah, Ian Earl, the Dying Girl, he wrote the screenplay too, I believe. Like
the author did write the screenplay. He didn't direct it, but he did write the screenplay. That is correct. And crazily enough, Steven Chbosky is actually doing a lot more screenwriting and directing now as well. I mean, I haven't seen Love, Simon yet, but I know that Greg Berlanti was probably the perfect choice for directing. I mean, in terms of these specific topics, he's doing that a lot with his DC television universe. He's the producer of that entire chain of shows, including Riverdale. So he was definitely the right choice for that. But I appreciate the fact that they're doing this a lot more now. And I think that will actually create better films, at least overall likability towards films based on novels,
Yeah.
Well, I feel like I need to go and take a nap because I am exhausted after this, but great job.
I have one more thing.
Certainly.
I forgot to mention this in the atmosphere thing. Just something that I noticed that I kind of loved. I like that they didn't romanticize VR, and like when we saw them in the overworld using the VR headsets, they looked like idiots because using VR makes you look like an idiot.
Oh yeah,
I really like that.
If there's one thing that I have learned as a member of society these days, I'm trying to immerse myself these days more in the real world than I am in the virtual world, which is why I think that even though YouTube is a virtual communication and social media platform, the fact that it has turned from just commenting on videos to people actually Skyping with one another and meeting each other in real life and actually building friendships. You know, that's a very powerful thing. The fact that a piece of technology makes you want to go out and be social in the real world is wonderful. It's amazing how something like YouTube is doing that and something as popular as Facebook and Instagram are not.
Right.
Yep.
I think that Facebook and Instagram are more of an ego booster, if you will. I don't necessarily feel that way with YouTube. I mean, yes, you make your own videos and you voice your own opinions, but what you really want when you record those videos is you want those comments because you want to talk to people about this stuff. That's why you make videos.
Tell me things. Like, do you like this? Do you like this? Tell me what books you're reading. I'm like, be my friend. Like that's my whole entire thing. I'm like, be my friend. I'm not here just to talk about cozies. I'm not here just to talk about, my life. I want to know about your life too. We can be friends.
And live shows like this are a way for people who are catering to a certain niche to open up, because that's what I'm noticing a lot right now in the booktube community. People are actually saying, I don't just sit in my room and read books all day. Like, I like sports, I like camping, I like traveling, I like movies, I like going to concerts, I like taking care of children because I'm a teacher or I'm a camp counselor or I'm a guidance counselor or an avid babysitter. Like, there's so many dimensions to ourselves, and the fact that we have something like YouTube that allows us to show all those sides of us, I think is a very powerful thing. I really do.
I concur.
But the battle is over, and what a battle it was, and this was interesting. The score was extremely close. The final round, it was 6-5 in favor of the movie.
Yay!
So the movie actually won.
I mean, congratulations, Gina.
You know something? I'm telling you the God's honest truth. And I really, really thought that the book was going to win.
I did too.
But Gina just kept throwing out certain things that just like made me start thinking a little bit more. And believe it, Courtney, I agree with so many things you said, but I think that towards the last couple of questions, Gina just quietly just started to shoot you down a little bit, and that's where she got it. Like the whole I thought that when she was talking about the IOI and the puzzle solving, and I mean, look, if you want me, I've never done this before. I'll go into the nitty gritty of round 3. You, Gina, you took over you actually won the battle with Ludus because you mentioned a couple of things that were not necessarily things that people were being taken into consideration. Okay, see, Courtney, you took it. You took the you took all the tasks and the keys. You took that category. But at the end, it was just Gina that did it. I don't know how she did it, but she did it. We'll have to rewatch
I'm a cinephile.
That's
I'm
true.
a cinephile, so I knew where to pick into it.
And I'm not one that wants to be biased or take favorites, because remember, I love the book and the film. The book is one of my all-time favorites, but I love the movie so much too. And there were just some things that were said that just made me have to turn my eye, because I'm not saying that it wasn't true, because there were points in time where I'm saying I'm giving this to the book right away, but then Gina says something that makes me think.
Yes.
You know, so maybe that's the disadvantage of going first. I'm just saying. I don't know.
There were some parts I went first though.
That is true.
There were a couple.
But my goodness, you guys did wonderful. Absolutely wonderfully. I mean, like, it's so funny because in the last battle, I had the Wrinkle in Time book beat the film, and Reggie from Don't Stop Reading, who defended the book, still couldn't believe she won. It just happens. It just happens.
It was a good battle.
Absolutely. This was great.
Fun.
This was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. But anyway, everybody, I just want to say thank you for joining us today. It was absolutely fantastic, and this was definitely one of the better battles. The last two shows have been phenomenal, and I think it's just because of the fact that a great flow has emerged, and people are literally just going at it. And once again, a true debate was seen today, which I was so happy to see. But what's going to happen is this video will get taken down in about an hour or so, because I'm going to add an intro and I'm going to add an outro and make it look all nice and pretty, and then everybody can watch it whenever they want. If you ladies would like, I am more than willing to share this with you in Google Share Drive, and you can post these on your respective channels if you want it. If you don't, you don't have to have it. But I'm glad that we managed to look at this wonderful book and film in a very interesting and in-depth perspective. I think it was about time, because everybody I know loves this book, and so many people I know love this movie. But Gina, Courtney, thank you both. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please, everybody, check these two ladies out. Courtney is someone who is just in a world all her own. She's found a niche, she's taking it for all it's worth, and she's given me some interesting books that I never even knew existed. I had no idea what a cozy mystery was until I found your channel.
Cozy mysteries.
But I definitely want to see some other things that you do have in regards to your personality on your channel, because you're obviously a film fan. You're a Funko Pop collector. I see that. Gina is also someone I have been friends with for, I think, going on 3 years, because Gina sends me holiday cards. She is so sweet. And my wife and I, forget about the card. We just love the fact that you stamp them with a Slytherin stamp. That's the best part.
That's awesome.
My wax seal collection is growing.
Yeah, but she is a Funko Pop collector. She is a movie fanatic. She is a book fanatic as well. And of course, a fellow hockey fan, which there's always so many things that Gina and I discuss. And Gina will definitely be back with a vengeance on her channel. She has been thinking about coming back strong. And I think that this was hopefully a positive spark of hope to get you back here, because I want you back. You should be back. You're fantastic.
I have videos recorded. My software's being obnoxious. So once I either update it or get new software, I'll be back.
Well, I know that my friend Alex, who is known as Mermal Madness, who I have been advertising a great deal on my Twitter feed, he is a professional editor, but he also knows a couple of things about computers. If you have any basic questions, you're welcome to reach out to him. As my best friend since age 4, you couldn't ask for someone more trustworthy, even though he does say to so many people, no, I will not fix your computer. But anyway, everybody, thank you once again for watching. It has been fantastic. I am so excited for the next episode of Versus, because it is a little bit of Disney, which I think we're a little bit excited to finally get into this little battle royale, if you will. But everyone out there who is celebrating Memorial Day, please be safe, have a good time, and don't forget to come back to my channel tomorrow for the newest episode of Sunday Sit Downs. It is gonna be a blast. So thank you, everybody, and I will see you in the next one.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Hey, thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. If you're new here and want to see more of what my channel has to offer, please click on the link to my last video, or hit that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all of my uploads. Content of all sorts is posted here quite often, so trust me, you do not want to fall behind. I will see you in the comments, and actions speak louder than words.